Hey guys, I'm Ryan Engler alongside Jake Mastbaum and Sam Aleinikoff, and we're coming to you from the Slope Studios. Big weekend this past weekend for the Big Red. Friday night against Yale, they had the lead late, couldn't quite hold on. Saturday though, they go into Brown and notch their first victory in league play, which is obviously huge for this team. It'll be very important to see how they can take that momentum going forward. This weekend though, two tough games at home. Friday night against Penn, Saturday night against Princeton. It'll be very interesting to see how Cornell can play against these two very high-quality opponents in league play. Interestingly enough, Tuesday night, which is tonight, these two teams are playing each other. So it'll be interesting to see. How that goes. But looking ahead, Friday night to Penn. This is a team that 3-1 in the Ivy League, definitely has potential to compete for an Ivy League title. Maybe a little bit below Princeton and Harvard, but very, very good. What is it going to take on Friday night for the Big Red to come away with an important victory against a good Penn team?
Starting early on in the season, we had a sense that Penn was going to be really good this year. Miles Cartwright emerged really early on. As early as the opening weekend against Davidson, they notched that win early on. They played Kentucky tough, had a lead going into the break against Kentucky. So we knew this Penn team was going to be good. And early on in Ivy League play, they've only improved, winning their first 3 games. And then against Harvard last Friday, they were down by double digits throughout most of that game, managed to come all the way back and take that game to double overtime before they eventually fell by 1. Nonetheless, this is a very strong Penn squad that's going to be tough up and down the lineup for Cornell to match up with. I think the biggest matchup problems come in the backcourt for Cornell, where really Penn's got 2 of the top backcourt players in the league this year. Obviously, Zach Rosen has been one of the top players in the league the past couple years. This year, a viable candidate for Ivy League Player of the Year, potentially one of the top assist guys with 5.3 assists per game, one of the top scorers with about 15 points a game. And Zach Rosen, Chris Robleski over the last couple years has been phenomenal matchup every time they've matched up on the court against each other. It'll be great to see it again this year, and I think it's a toss-up who wins that matchup. Then you look at Miles Cartwright, a guy who's a freshman, really came onto the scene early on in the year, averaging close to 32 minutes a game as a freshman. He can score the basketball, not quite as good of a shooter as Rosen, but can score the basketball as well, and it's going to be a tough matchup when you have 2 guys who can handle the ball, penetrate, and really do a lot of things on both offense and defense like they have. On the perimeter, the last guy you got to look at for Penn is Jack Eggleston. He's a guy who shoots the three-pointer at a 52% clip, but he's 6'8", so he has the inside-outside game. He averages more than 8 rebounds a game, 14 points a game, plays 38 minutes a game. So this is a guy who's really kind of the inside-outside duo, and he's going to be tough for Cornell as well. So the perimeter, I think, is where it's going to be toughest for Cornell. And last weekend, what we saw from them is that they have been able to start to establish an interior game. At least it seems that way with the emergence of Eitan Shemerinsky kind of this past weekend, 11 points on Friday, 7 on Saturday. And Mark Curry had a huge game on Saturday as well. So if they can continue the kind of that interior presence against Penn, I think they've got a shot because they do have guards that could potentially match up with both Rosen and Cartwright on the outside.
Right. Yeah, and I mean we saw Penn beat Cornell last year when Cornell was the top team in the league. So certainly a good team with a lot of pieces. Looking ahead to Saturday night's game, however, against Princeton, going to be very, very tough. And we saw Princeton beat Harvard. They have just been playing phenomenal basketball really the entire season, and it's going to take a very, very strong effort for them to win that game. That being said, it is Saturday night. Princeton will have been traveling. That could come into play as well. If Cornell's going to beat Princeton, some things are going to happen. What are they?
Princeton, a very system-based team, and they run that system to perfection. You look at last weekend, and I know Princeton came out with a victory, but I really don't think there's any argument that Harvard is the more talented team. And what that tells you is how much team basketball Princeton plays and how much credit you could really give to Sidney Johnson, the head coach of the Princeton Tigers. And you look at Cornell versus Princeton last year, the 2 games, 2 narrow 3-point victories for the Big Red, and in both of those games, Cornell ran their offense through their front court. The Princeton defense really shuts down the outside game, leading the Ivy League in 3-point percentage defense, with opponents only shooting 33% from long range. And what this means is that Cornell really needs to establish a game inside the paint, really get a back to the basket score going, especially if they want to open up the perimeter for their backcourt players. I expect Eitan Chemerinsky to play a big role in this, really compound the 2 positive performances he had from last weekend. But you know what? This is really going to be a difficult game for the Big Red, as Princeton really is the cream of the crop of the Ivy League. But you know what? We've heard this so many times before, that playing on the road on a Saturday night in the Ivy League is so difficult, and everyone knows that the Cornell-Columbia road trip is the toughest in the Ivy League because of the sheer distance, something that, Ryan, that you mentioned at the beginning of this show. So obviously, you know, sheer traveling is not going to be enough for a Cornell victory. They're really going to have to execute on both the offensive and the defensive end. But at least, hey, that's something going for them right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to think that they really did play better this past weekend. I mean, they played well against Yale until the last couple minutes.
And Coach Courtney said that. We played 38 minutes of phenomenal basketball.
Right.
And the last 2 minutes we choked, but 38 minutes is something to build off of.
Absolutely. They go in, they beat Brown, and you know what? Maybe they have a phenomenal week of practice and come out and play really well. And I don't think it's out of the question at all for the Big Red to notch at least one victory this weekend. And if they could, that would be great. Well, there you have it. Thanks for checking in with us this week on the Slope pregame show for Cornell basketball. We'll be covering both games this weekend, Friday night against Penn, Saturday night against Princeton. We'll be calling the games so you can listen to them, and you can also follow us on Twitter at SlopeCU Sports. Thanks for watching, guys.